Welcome to another episode of That's Some Crazy Shit. I am Kelly and my co-host is James.
Thank you very much. It's been pretty cool, Kel, to have three seasons already.
3 seasons. And the season for us is about 13 weeks, about 13 episodes, an episode running every Saturday. So anyway, I'm so excited. Season 3, we're kicking off with a guest. We had, James, we had talked about the Akashic Record before, talked about how I always wanted a reading, and we met somebody who does exactly that.
That was a trip.
We had our Akashic readings. It was a trip. Her name is Jo Figueras. Say your last name for me, James.
I think it's Figueras.
Figueras. Jo Figueras. And Jo is a Akashic Soul Blueprint Reader. She incorporates numerology and astrology into her readings. She also makes jewelry, which I did not know this, James. And she incorporates the astrology and the numerology into her jewelry design for her clients as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, I did not know that. She is totally cool. She gave me and James both a reading. We both spent an hour with her, and it was fantastic. I've never had an Akashic reading before, so I was really excited.
It was very cool. It really was. I think what really stood out to me was, I want to say, the accuracy.
Yes. It was definitely some crazy shit. I can't wait to talk to her. James, we should just go ahead and get started.
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome to the podcast. You're going to say her last name. I'm going to say her first name. Welcome to the podcast, Jo
Figueras.
Let's do it. Jo, thank you so much for being on the podcast and being a part of That's Some Crazy Shit. I'm so excited that you are here. How are you?
I am doing wonderful, and I have been looking forward to this all week. So what a fun experience it's going to be.
I'm excited. Ever since we talked earlier this week, I've been excited.
Yay.
So, one of the things that me and James always talk about when we talk about crazy shit is the Akashic Record. That's one of the things that was always fascinating, and I had only heard of it maybe 5 years ago. James, what's your experience?
Well, I had heard of it a while ago, but I didn't understand, I guess, what it was. I mean, and I've heard that people were able to tap into it, like they say Tesla was able to tap into it, and all these people who had all these, Da Vinci, they say these people could tap into it and get all this advanced knowledge, and I just never understood how they could do that, and so it's always been interesting too to me.
So Jo, explain to us what it is and how it works and how you got into it.
Okay. For me personally, the Akasha is an energy, right? It's a dimension that you tap into. So when a medium connects with a spirit, it's because they're tapping into just another dimension, another energy. And that's what the Akasha is. A lot of people think of it or describe it as a library. I think that's just for the human perception, right? We need tangible things to connect. A lot of people will think of it or describe it as a book. And so it's just easier for people. But it is actually an energy. It's another dimensional energy.
How did you know when you had tapped in to this energy?
So I know that this is what I'm meant to do. This was something that was written in my soul blueprint. I've known the word Akasha since I was a little girl, but I didn't know what it meant, right? It was just this word that would pop up into my head every now and again. And then once I got older, I don't know, maybe in my 30s or my 40s, there were several instances where I tried to learn how to open the Akashic records. I had learned a little bit more about it. I got a book. I joined classes, whatever. Every single time I would go to learn this, the book would not interest me. I'd get like a chapter in and I just couldn't the class would get scheduled or rescheduled or canceled. It was this sort of crazy synchronicities that I was experiencing. I'm like, finally, I'm like, okay, fine. I'm just not meant to learn the Akasha. I mean, I was still an intuitive, and I was doing like tarot and oracle readings and readings of that nature. And then one day, I had scheduled a trade with another friend of mine who was a channel, and all of a sudden, my ears in the morning, they were blocked. So it was like I had water in my ears. And I called her and I said, I have to cancel. I can't come because I don't know what's going on with my ears. I have to go to the doctor. And she's like, hold on a second. She's like, oh, you're getting a new ability. And I, of course, I trust her implicitly. She's a badass channel. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's my new ability? She's like, hold on. She took a minute and she's like, oh, you're going to learn the Akashic Records. And I was like, oh, all right. Well, I'll be over there in 10 minutes. so it was, I got over there. She read me and my spirit guides came through. I met a new spirit guide who I had been sensing in my readings for about a week prior to that. And I was like, who is this woman who's standing to my left? It was an energy, a female energy, very loving. I wasn't, afraid or worried or anything. I was just like, who is this person? Like, how can I help you, spirit? And they never answered. So I'm like, all right, fine. And that's who she was. She's what's called the gatekeeper guide. And the gatekeeper guide is typically a spirit guide that presents themselves to mediums when they're meant to actually start giving readings of, a mediumistic nature. So at that point, then
So do only mediums have gatekeeper guides?
No, anybody that works with a spirit guide. Well, okay. Actually, I'm not going to, I guess I don't want to limit my answer to, not about being right or wrong, but it's about, you could open that up. If you work with spirit guides, if you can communicate with spirits, even earthbound spirits, right? You have a spirit guide that is sort of like your bouncer. A lot of times if I'm working with somebody and they're not really open to the messages, I'll ask Oma, that's her name, Oma, to step in and help translate that for me because I just can't get anything from the person. So I'm going to say no, but yes. do you know how that? Yeah, I think that anybody that interacts with spirits has a guide. Anyway, so from there, I asked her, I'm like, Jane, well, how am I going to, how am I going to learn it? Is it a book, a class? I was so excited. She's like, oh, no, you're going to channel it. And I'm like, what? No, I'm going to get it wrong. I'm not, I don't know what I'm doing. And I was so disappointed, but I tell you what, the next 3 nights, my ears would plug up and that was my sign to sit down, shut up and start typing. And I channeled the history of the Akasha. They told me what I would be doing, my prayer, how to open it, and then just all sorts of other things. I have it all written down. It's really cool. One day I'm going to write a book about it.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. That is really cool. So when you channel or when you tap in to the Akasha, and you did it for me and James, which I thought was really cool because prior to us even meeting you, I told James I really want to have my Akashic Record read. I read about it. You see all these meditations on YouTube on how to open it, but I always felt that there was more to it than that, right? There just has to be.
Yeah.
And so I would always tell James, I really want this done. So when we came across you and then you said you would do it, I was incredibly excited, right? Because I'm just like, this is always something I want done. Because for those that don't know, explain what it is. Explain what you said. It's an energy, but it's an energy of supposed to be all the knowledge of everything that ever was. Correct?
Yes,
like
absolutely.
Past, present, future.
Past, present, future, parallel, dimensions and lifetimes. Time is a human construct, and that's sort of the foundation of the teachings of the Akasha. Time doesn't exist; it only exists for humans. Again, we need that tangible sort of reference point. And, that's what the Akasha is. It is, for all intents and purposes, it is the database of the universe, right? The cloud of the universe. And anything that you need, you can just type in a search, request it, ask for it, and then that information comes down. different depending on the the intuitive strengths of the Akashic reader. That determines how they read. Some people read, some people are channels, 100% they channel. Other people will access it via clairvoyance, others clairaudience. An Akashic reader is as different and unique as, any other type of intuitive. It just depends on how they get the messages.
Can anybody access it?
Absolutely. Historically, back in like the 30s or the 40s or even prior to that, it was thought that, only the chosen people could access. It was a very sacred teaching. And now, spirit is like the Akasha is it comes from everyone. It is of everyone. And you can absolutely, there's never been a question that I've asked the Akasha that they won't answer or give me a reason why the person can't know that or doesn't need to know that or why it's not accessible at this point.
I think that is so fascinating.
Yeah.
That is so cool to me.
Yeah.
So when you do your readings, Joe, you use the Akasha, but you also use numerology, and I noticed that you kind of blend them together to kind of read the person. So I'm interested in how you decided that those were the two modalities that you would use, along with your connection to your spirit guides. I was just absolutely fascinated when you did this, and we'll get into that. And James, hopefully you'll talk about yours too. But how did you decide that this is how you were it was all gonna come together?
I really love how I use it too, right? I mean, and that has been sort of a work in progress. When I first started doing them, it was very straightforward. I would say the prayer, open the record, and then just specifically ask the questions that the person asked, or that the person was interested in. But over time, I found numerology. And numerology, I call it the bones of the soul blueprint. So as my interest and my knowledge sort of grows within the Akasha or tapping into this energy, I became interested in soul blueprints, right? The document that's created in the pre-life planning stage by us, our higher selves, saying this is who I'm going to be. This is, how I'm going to, these are the goals that I'm going to set for in my life. I'm going to look like this. I'm going to be female. I'm going to have, brown skin, like I do, and I'm going to pick my parents and all of these things. And the more that I got interested in numerology and I started researching it and doing it, I realized numerology is, like I said, it's like the bones of the soul blueprint, and that soul blueprint is our life purpose. And of course, the Akasha is about learning about your life purpose and your karma and your balance and your gifts and all of the things that hold you back. So it was just this beautiful marriage that just sort of came together.
I thought it blended really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in numerology because they say, that comes from your birth date, the number of letters in your names and so forth, and all of those things make up numerology. And so that's another way to kind of figure out who you are as well, right?
Yes.
Your purpose or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So when you are blending all these things and you are telling people about themselves, right? Are you getting that from the numerology? Because numerology is kind of like astrology.
Yes, it's similar to astrology.
And when I say that, because me and James had this conversation, right? Where if you're a 5, like I think my soul number,
your soul urge is
was
a 5, yes.
Yes, my soul urge number is a 5. But doesn't a 5 have a certain characteristics like the astrology sign Leo has certain characteristics?
Yes, absolutely. Correct.
Okay.
It's interesting because when I review your numbers in an Akashic reading. I am reading the numbers. I am not reading you specifically, but what happens is when you resonate with these numbers, that raises your vibrational field, because how I read another person is based on their electromagnetic field, their aura, their soul, whatever you want to call it, their etheric field. That's what I connect with. And when the emotions, when you're sitting there going, yes, 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 your vibrational frequency is rising, it's rising. And what it's doing is sort of fortifying, and it's giving spirit a stronger foundation on which to connect with me. So your emotions, I'm connecting with your emotions, and then spirit's coming in, and then that's activating my clairaudience, my inner ear hearing, my external ear hearing, my clairvoyance, my clairsentience, where I sense, and then of course my other my claircognizance, where I just know things. I don't know how I know them, they just come to me. So all of those intuitive abilities are really fortified within that energy. And the more spot on I am, the more, excited you are. And then the stronger the messages then come through. That's the science behind psychic. By reading somebody, you're reading their electromagnetic field. That's what you're doing. You're receiving information telepathically, clairvoyantly, and clairsentiently through their electromagnetic field. It is so sciencey that there's no woo-woo to it. I love that about it.
No woo. I like that.
And it's funny because James, you're over here chuckling at what she's saying. So
I'm shaking my head. Yes, yeah.
Because is that how your reading was?
It was exactly like Joe said. I went in. I was just so anxious, going in, and then as we were talking, and she's telling me how the numbers correspond to me. She was describing me, Kelly, and I kept saying, Joe, I want Kelly to hear this, because it was like she knew me all these years, what she was telling me. It was incredible how accurate it was. And I just kept, like she said, my emotions, it was a roller coaster. It was really good though.
Did you feel like when she talked about the things that you need to be doing, or your life purpose, or your soul imprint, did you feel like, man, how did you know, Joe? Or were you like, no, I never really thought about that before? What was your experience?
It's interesting that you said that, because when we were talking about it, I've worked in education 30 years, and so I've always thought I'd have to be kind of pigeon-toed into that profession of education. Then when Joe and I were talking, she said that it would be good for maybe me to learn how to use meditation to help the population I work with. So it'd still be in that field, but it'd be, in a different vein where I could maybe show outside the box a way to help these kids. And that was a new perspective for me. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
So, Joe, did you tell James that he should meditate?
So what came through his reading is that he is like a humanitarian, right? He is that person, he's that nurturer, he's that person who really just wants to help everybody on a global scale, but also in personal scale. And so there was a very loving and nurturing energy that came through. And so in order to help share that with others, yes, teach them meditation, going inward, slowing their breathing, and really sort of take a more holistic aspect, or develop, just an intro, holistic plan that he can then share with his students. It would definitely benefit him and give him another aspect of his career that will sort of energize you, right? Instead of the same old thing after 30 years. Or to keep it from draining.
I think somebody else has told James to meditate as well. I think somebody else said,
"Oh, James, now
meditate," but
now we're
I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert or anything.
No, but see, it just reaffirms what you said, my friend.
I had told him that a long time ago.
Now, dang it, James! Now we're both in trouble.
But the things you was telling me, and it's funny. It was a different perspective, and I liked that.
Yeah.
And she also told me I was empathic, or an empath, and thinking about it, it's like, well, maybe that's why after a day at work, I come home, I'm exhausted, man. Because you get those kids and you get all these emotions going, and, maybe it just takes more out of me than I thought.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly what happens with empaths.
She told me that I was incredibly psychic.
She is.
Right? I don't know if I don't, and it's so funny because me and James have had these conversations, and just lately, because when we first started doing the podcast, right, I would say things like, God, James, we should have a guest. And then boom, a guest would pop up, like out of nowhere. Right? And it would be weird things like this. And I would say things and they would happen.
Yeah.
Right? But I never really put two and two together. I don't know.
Yeah.
James is my witness because I don't think anybody would believe me.
Well,
I think she does a really good job of manifesting things. I really do, Joe. She's always talked about it, and I can sit and say, yeah, I've seen her manifest things.
Her numbers support that. Kelly, you're a life path 5, you're an expression 8, but you're also a personality 8. That's double. 5s and 8s are masters at manifestation. And then your birthday number is the 11-2 master number, and that's where all of your psychic abilities come from. So those two work in conjunction with each other, and you're like, I think of it, think of it, and it just comes into fruition. So for sure.
And it does.
Yeah.
And that's what's crazy to me. Because, everything, like even lately, I'll be talking to James, or he'll say something, or I'll say something, and then the next day or a day later, something, syncs up with exactly what we said. It is crazy.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah.
That's some crazy
I'll tell you what else she told me. Let me tell you what else she told me since we're podcasting. She told me, because I was like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? Me and James have this wonderful podcast. James talks about taking it to another level. What are we supposed to be doing? And she told me, James, interesting enough, that I am destined to be doing something with either books or publishing or a conglomerate, maybe books, podcast, and publishing all under one umbrella. And she did say she's on board. So
a media company.
Right on.
Yes, like a media company.
Yes, a media.
Yep, that's what came through, and I thought it was so funny that I'm like, what's with this with publishing? She's like, well, I am a publisher, and I'm like, what? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how accurate she was. It's like crazy scary. And so, Joe, when you are reading people, do you have people come back time and time again to ask questions, to have you access the record and ask questions maybe about their future or about their past lives? Or do you have people that come on like a regular basis that will come to you?
I do have regulars, but I recommend that you get an Akashic reading first, right? Because that's going to give you, really everything to show you. It's going to give you the tools to show you where you are out of alignment with your soul blueprint and what needs to be done to bring yourself into alignment, okay? Then you have to do the work. You have to do the work. You have to do the inner work, the self work, whatever, right? Shadow work, whatever they call it. You're going to have to do that. Once you are back into alignment, then you start to see synchronicities and opportunities. And that's when I recommend when you're at a good place, right? Where you're at a place where life is flowing and you're really happy, that you then book a second reading with me as a spirit guide reading, right? Because then we connect specifically to your spirit guides, and then where you can ask questions or get deeper insight into the things that you're experiencing. But I also have people that will book refreshers or whatever, but I recommend, 6 months. Don't book another reading for another 6 months unless, you have like a major life change or a catalytic event or something like that.
So does the Akasha, does it help you identify where maybe you're stuck energetically?
Yes.
Maybe, how they say your chakras can be stuck or out of whack? Does it kind of show you like where you need to like focus and maybe how to do that?
Absolutely. And that's why these readings are so effective with helping people, change the direction of their life. And that's based on the numerology. Okay. So for instance, Kelly, your expression number and personality number is an 8, right? That's the powerhouse. And so some of the lower tendencies of the 8 can be a little bit stuck in your mind, like my way or the highway, not as negative as that, but yeah, right.
I know, I'm shocked to hear this.
Right. So in that instance, I would say to you, well, if this is something that you experience to a great deal in your life where you're finding that it's causing you problems or conflict, right? A lot of people, maybe somebody says, I can't work with you because it's your way or the highway. And you realize that this is creating a conflict in your life and it's something that needs to be changed. Then what I would tell you is to bring in more of an emotion or a trait, or develop a coping mechanism that brings balance to that, right? Then you would want to learn to maybe be more collaborative, or, to start saying, okay, this is how I want it, but tell me why you want it your way. Do you see what I'm saying? So when we bring when we learn new coping mechanisms, they actually become traits that are positive and that support our goals. And wow, that's when we come into balance, when the manifestation really kicks in.
So James, what was your soul urge number? Do you remember?
All I remember were double 7s and double 9s.
Yeah, James,
what was his number?
James is a soul urge 9. He's the humanitarian. So he's the humanitarian and the seeker. But his life path is a 6. The 6 is the nurturer. So he's he's got 6s and 7s and 9s. He's in a 7 year. And the next year is going to be an 8 year, which is his personal year. So the 7 is the seeker, the 9 is the humanitarian, and the 6 is the nurturer. So that's, in a nutshell, that's who he is a seeking and knowledge-seeking humanitarian nurturer.
That sums him up so well. So when you say that his next year is a personal year, what does that mean for him?
Okay,
that's my year.
Yes. So 2021 is a 7 year for him. So basically he's experiencing all of the traits, both positive and I hate the term negative, but challenging in this year. He's in a 7 year, and so everything that he's experiencing is inherent in the number 7. Okay, seeking knowledge, looking for answers, really, trying to bring balance to the external world and the spiritual. He's a spiritual seeker. Okay, 2021, but in 2022, he's going to move into that 8 year, which is about the powerhouse. Numerology runs in 9-year cycles, 1 through 9. And then there are also master numbers, 11, 22, and 33. That's why you are an 11-2 birthday, because of those master numbers. Master numbers bring a lot more challenges to our life path or our life purpose or our numerology chart. It's called the core chart. A lot more challenges. But Kelly's agreeing. Kelly's like, yes.
I know she's over there.
Yes.
Lots of challenges.
Lots of challenges. But master numbers, your triumphs are also just greater than the average number. So,
because we're kick-ass.
That's right.
When we do triumph,
that's
we're
right.
Kick-ass.
It's true. It's true.
You told me something and it's been in my head the whole time. You had said to me, you're like, Kelly, you're like this psychic, and if you were to like work with me for 6 weeks, nobody could touch you. You'd be badass. And so in my,
told me that.
and I was like,
it's true.
She told me I could be this badass psychic, James, and you could be the empath, and then we could be like these Avengers that go out and save the world, right?
That would be awesome. That'd be a great movie.
You could be awesome.
But it's true. I tell so many of my clients that have master numbers in their charts that if you develop these consistently, you will be able to call yourself a psychic or a medium or a channel or whatever. And for you, James, you are James is like an uber empath, basically. Like he's the epitome of empath, which is your strongest intuitive abilities would be clairsentient. You are the master of sensing things. You know things and you don't know how you know them. You just know them. You sense them. And so you pick up on a lot of unspoken words, unspoken emotions. You just know what's going on under the surface. Whereas Kelly, you are as the master, like the master number 11 too is the inspired healer. Your psychic abilities you sense just as well as James does, but then you're able to glean details and information out of that. That's where your psychic abilities come into play.
See, that's why we're a good team, Kara.
Yeah.
And that's so funny because when you're talking, I'm thinking, God, that would explain a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Because James always says things like, because we did an episode once and somebody had told James a while ago that he has portals in his house.
Oh.
That spirits come and go in his house. He has portals in his house. And so James always says he senses things. He never says he sees anything. But he will say to me,
I never thought about that.
Things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right? He'll say, God, Kelly, I sense something weird, but he never says I see something weird. He always says I sense it.
Yeah.
And so that's very
funny.
interesting.
I never thought about that.
There is a difference when I'm doing readings. If I sense something, I'm not seeing it, I'm not hearing it. I'm just sort of, what is that? What is that? And that's typically what I'll say. Tell me about this. What is that? But then there are times when I see something and I will say, well, I'm seeing this or I'm hearing this. But yeah, a lot of times I'll say I'm sensing this. So there is a big difference. There's a subtle difference.
Somebody had told me that they were afraid to get these types of readings because they're afraid that either that nothing will be picked up on or that there'll be a void. But everybody makes a soul blueprint. Yes. Nobody is void, right?
No. There are people that I'm just not able to read. And I just had a recent reading that just, they were not open to they weren't open to anything, and they weren't open. You know how at the very beginning of the reading, where I take you down into that little mini meditation and I say, open up to the messages of the Akasha, open up to my energy, open up to the messages and the clarity and the guidance from your spirit guides, guardians, angels, all of that, right? Open. Some people are not, and they don't want to hear it, and they are like, that doesn't sound like me. Everything that I read from their numbers, they're multitasking, they're eating and texting it's ridiculous, and I can't get anything. I can't develop a connection, and I can't get anything. So there are those people. Then there are others who, I've never experienced this, but I have a number of intuitive and psychic, friends. And one of my friends told me that she read somebody one time and she wasn't getting anything. And anytime she would close her eyes, she would get a black. It was like just nothing, right? Like a closed door. And so, she told, her client, she's like, I'm so sorry, I'm just not getting anything. I must have an off day or something like that. And so she refunded the client's money, and the client went about the day, and she said, just check back in like a couple weeks and book again. We'll try again. And then the lady passed away. And so then, my friend was like, that's why I couldn't get anything, because there was nothing to get. There was nothing to see. She had come to the end of her soul blueprint, and it was time for her to pass back over. There was nothing, and they certainly weren't going to tell her that, right? So it was like radio silence.
Wow.
So tell us about the soul blueprint. You said that everybody makes one.
Yeah.
So somebody might say, well, if that's the case, then why did I make my life so incredibly hard?
Yep.
Why wouldn't I have made my life this great life? So tell me about the soul the soul blueprint.
So you're writing this document, but you're writing it from the perspective of your higher self, right? So you're a higher being in the fifth dimension, which is, for lack of a better term, heaven, the other side, whatever. We don't experience those lower energies of fear, doubt, worry, whatever. Anything that we write in our soul blueprint or experience that we write for ourselves, it's all about that higher spiritual growth. I'm going to write myself as, this maybe having a terminal illness and overcoming it, or, having, something that you would question and say, why in the hell would I write this for myself? Because in spirit, we're like, this is going to give me an amazing amount of spiritual growth. And it's not until we get here and we're like, I don't know what I was thinking, right? Because now we're experiencing life through those six senses that we don't experience on the other side.
So would you say that you write the blueprint as your higher being because you're trying to, I guess, maybe get to the next level?
Yes.
You're trying to experience whatever that is that you're trying to experience that maybe you didn't learn. Somebody had said, and James, correct me if I'm wrong, we have talked to so many people that talk about past lives and coming back and all that good stuff. And somebody had said that the reason why you keep coming back, or reincarnation, is to learn the lessons that you didn't learn before.
Yeah.
Is that what you're writing in your soul blueprint, is to learn those lessons that you didn't learn the last time?
Yes.
Is there a time that you learn all the lessons and there's no more lessons to be learned?
I think that there is always a lesson to be learned, because we don't know we have no idea of the mysteries of the universe. What if there's a whole new level, right? Where in this one, we have to go through the ascension process in order to be full-time, a fifth dimensional being, which is you don't need a physical body, right? But then what after that? What is out there? What if there's a whole other universe and we start again after we ascend to this level? Then we start again at level 1, going through another life process. So that's one of the great mysteries, is that we don't know. But what I do know is that if you leave this life with accumulated karma that needs to be balanced, or spiritual lessons that you haven't completely grasped and integrated into your own self-actualization, then those sort of go on the list for the next life, right? And maybe it'll be a different part of the world, you'll be a different race, you'll be a different sex, you'll be you'll experience a whole new circumstance, like external circumstances, but internally you're going to experience the same things. That's why I have such a compassion for people that take their own lives. It's like going to summer camp as a kid, right? Sometimes it's too much. You just miss home and you just want to go home because it's just too much. And a lot of times people that take their lives are called selfish, but that's not at all what it is. It's an honor. When I was reading one of my clients one time, a spirit came through, and the spirit that came through had committed suicide, and she told me for my client, and said that embodying is like winning a gold medal. It is the most prized possession of a spirit, is to be able to embody. So going into it, there's no way a spirit would say, I'm going to take my own life, because then the whole life is sort of like, a wash in some ways. And so we have to understand how precious human life is to spirit, in order to sort of have more compassion for people that take their own. So I got off on a little tangent there, but hopefully that answered your question.
No, that's good, Joe. And I always think it's so tragic that these people, feel that they can't reach out to someone for help. Even though there's people surround them that would help them. Yeah. They just feel like they can't get that help, and I always thought that was really sad.
Yeah, it's sad, and just that spiritually, when you look at it from a spiritual aspect, they're just like, this isn't what I thought it was. I want to go home. I'm done. I want to go home. And it's just like being homesick, or I don't know, being in a terrible movie. I would never, simplify it that much, because there are human emotions involved, but, similar.
Right.
When you are looking at the Akashic Record, is it set in stone, or does it change? Can you change it? Can you change your future? You can't change your past because it's already done, right? But can you change the future?
The Akasha is fluid and flowing, because remember, it's all energy. And we're given, we write this document for ourselves, or mapper, however you choose to see it, but we're also given free will. And free will is all about decisions and choices. And do we make choices that support the goals that we set for ourselves when we're aligned with our soul blueprint? Or are we one of those people who just keep making these choices that result in just, what we term, like a shit show, just people that live these lives that are just, you look at them and you're like, holy crap, that person is just really struggling with life. And that's a result of free will. So yeah, that's why we need to learn to make really good choices or choices. And that's why everybody's on a different path and a different level.
Yeah. Now, when we had spoken, you had told me about a past life of mine. And I tried to explain it to Kelly, and we were getting kind of caught up. I told her, you said I was a merchant in the 1300s.
Yep.
And I had a small stall where I did my business, and she couldn't get past it. The stall. She kept thinking horse.
I was thinking of a horse stall. So like, so what? You had like a little stall that you rented out.
Terminology on me stuff.
So he said a kiosk, and that made sense to me, right? But when he said stall, I was like, so wait a minute. So it's like you just rented out this one singular horse stall,
right,
and that was your little business?
That's
not much of a business, James.
Listen, that is Kelly's 8. Her 8 is expressing herself as she needs to get into the breeds and the details and can't get past those details. It's like, until that makes sense, we're not going anywhere. We're not talking about anything until that makes sense. Listen, I'm going to throw a little wrench in the works. So I actually have written down here small store. So either I said it wrong, or you heard it wrong. And this
I think I said it wrong.
And it was all for nothing.
So it wasn't a stall.
It was a store.
It was a store.
My bad.
When he said small stall, I was like, well, wait a minute. Like a horse
Right?
stall? He's like, no, like a stall. I was like, but that's what a stall is. We had like a 20-minute argument about the stall that he had, right? So
Right.
now we know that it's a store, James. It was a store.
Listen, it could have been
So
me.
it was bigger than a kiosk.
Yes, it could have been me mispronouncing it, because I had a past life where I was a blacksmith and I had a stall, and it was similar to a horse stall. It was like an open aired workshop, so I could have called it a stall, but it was a store. It was a store, and he wanted
funny.
more.
Well, at least you had a business. She told me in my past life that I was a slave.
Yeah.
And I was chained to a wall, and they only let me out of the chains to work. It was a horrible life,
It was
Kelly. is what
not
you said
a
to
good
me.
life.
Like, great. That sounds...
But
This sounds horrible, man.
This reading is not going the way I had planned at all, Joe.
that's why I love past lives so much. And so, a lot of times when I only come off of what I call like a disempowering past life, at the end of the reading, I'll be like, okay, Spirit, now can you show us an empowering, fun past life so that they know that their life hasn't always been, crappy or in the past anyway, which we didn't do that with you, so we should have. I do that, but yeah, everybody has wonderful, enriching, beautiful, happy lives, and then there are also those lives that define us. That actually, the reason that life came forward is because that life directly related to this life, in that you have karma to work through, that where any area of your life where you feel disempowered, you need to really step into that power. And I think that's what they were trying to tie in with that multimedia company. Like, that's a way to really empower yourself and
you
others.
did make it make sense.
Yeah.
You did make it make sense, but it didn't start off all positive. Because I had told her, I said, I always thought my past life that I was a gangster because I have this thing about the mob. I have a fascination, an obsession with the mob. And she was like, well, then you probably were.
Yeah.
She goes, if that's what you feel, then you probably were.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because we talked about this. I have always felt drawn to Louisiana, New Orleans area.
Oh, yeah.
I love Cajun food, Creole, I just I like Zydeco music, It's like, who listens to Zydeco music, James? And I wondered if I was, past life, if I may have been down there.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh. See, so this is how it works. So I'm getting the heebie-jeebies. Basically, I get the tingles, and then I feel like all of a sudden I'm just sort of like a little bit high, right? Like that's what comes over me. So, you actually, yes, you lived on the Louisiana Bayou. They're showing me the Gulf, like the coast, like the rounded coast, and you're actually a fisherman. Now you too specifically had the same past life, or you shared that past life together. This isn't your first go round here, because also for you, Kelly, they're showing you as oh gosh, what is it? There's like a head dressing, a healer, like a Bayou Healer, working with spirit and energy. All right, so that makes sense, because a lot of times past lives will always tie together those intuitive gifts. So you can tap into those, and you know that you're going to be tapping into like ancestral. I won't really say ancestral, because you don't know who your ancestors are. I mean, when we incarnate into a brand new body, so it's not the same. So anyway, but you guys, yeah, they're showing me how you guys are together in that life too. You're friends.
So we were together in a past life?
Yep, that's what they're showing me.
Aww.
They're showing me, yeah, this isn't your first rodeo.
See, we were friends.
Yes. And a lot of times people that do, come together, and have lifelong friendships and that sort of thing, well, you are members of the same soul group, but also the same soul family. So, if I were to actually open up both of your records and ask to be shown, then they would show me probably a series of lives. They're showing me a pyramid right now, so that means there's probably a life in Egypt that you shared together. And so if I really sit in this energy, they'll just start bringing me more symbols and signs and details. Again, it has to build, but
interesting.
Yeah, it's cool when that comes.
We might have to do a session with all three of us.
Yeah.
That says a lot, because me and James, like I said, me and James have known one another literally since kindergarten. And even though we went to different schools as we got older, we have always stayed in touch.
Yeah.
Isn't that a trip?
Mm-hmm. It's a soul connection.
All these years, Kelly's moved all over.
Wow.
Soul connection. So
that was a little unexpected, but cool.
Yeah, it happens. It happens randomly. I would call you guys soulmates, actually. And soulmates aren't. They're not. Soulmates are. They're not romantic. Soulmates are actually souls that have created soul contracts to come together to help each other move forward on their path, and all of that stuff. But also people that you have deep bonds with too. So.
She's my sister from another mister.
That's right.
He's my brother from another mother. So that explains so much.
Yeah.
Joe, we want to thank you for being with us today. If somebody wanted a reading, because obviously you do readings over Zoom and stuff, if somebody wanted to reach out and have you do a reading for them, how would they get a hold of you?
thewokeakashic.com. That is the easiest way to get in touch with me, and you can see all of the things I do. You can catch a video, and then you can also check out just all sorts of other offerings that I have.
And from somebody who's actually been read by you and sat down and spent an hour with you, I would say it is one of the more informative readings that I've ever had. You told me a lot of things that I thought I knew, but you confirmed them for me.
Excellent.
And so it was a great reading. What would you say, James?
Oh, when Joe did me, it was like I said. She told me something that I needed to hear, and I thought that was very interesting, because I feel like you meet people at a certain time for a certain reason. And it was nice when Joe came along, because I was a little turmoil going on inside myself. And it was nice to have her kind of set me back on my path. She was very uncanny in her accuracy. And I also like that, that she kind of picked up on us being friends in other lives, because we do have a very strong bond, my friend.
Yeah,
and
we do.
It's nice to have someone kind of confirm that, maybe there's something more to our friendship. And we're so open-minded, this is what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is a trip. Oh my God, I've had so much fun. And now, James, you've confirmed the Louisiana. Haven't confirmed the gangster, but I'm pretty sure I had something to do with gangsters back in the day. I'm pretty sure of it.
You can take that into meditation and ask your spirit guides to show you, and you'll get your own snippets. Remember, you are psychic yourself.
Right, and she told me the name of my spirit guide.
Yeah.
She was like, Kelly, who's Mabel? I have no idea, Joe, who's Mabel? It's like, Mabel's your spirit guide. Well, okay.
Yep.
I learned all these things. This is fascinating.
Yeah. She did.
It was a very cool experience. Very cool.
I'm so glad.
Very, very cool. Joe, thank you so much for being with us today. We truly appreciate it. We're going to definitely have to have you come back again in the future. Again, it's thewokeakashic.com. All the information will be in the podcast description.
Wonderful. It's a wonderful conversation.
Thank
it was
you.
so much fun. Thank you guys for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
That was some crazy shit. That was
that was some crazy shit, my soul sister. My mind is blown.
We're in the same soul tribe. And you know what's funny? I have used that terminology with us before. Have I not?
Yeah, you have. I wish sometimes you had video because I'm over here shaking my head. Yeah.
Yeah, I have used that same terminology. So when she said that we're in the same soul tribe or whatever, I'm like, oh, I've used that same terminology. That was such a trip. That's some crazy shit. That's crazy.
That was very cool. That was a very cool experience.
I like Joe a lot. If you are looking at having somebody go into the Akashic Record for you, or maybe you want to know about your soul blueprint, she is definitely, I would definitely recommend her. Just in my own experience, she was dead on accurate for me. Yeah. And she sent us both the recordings of our readings so that we could go back and refer to them. And so my mind was blown. And my mind was blown when I sat down with her.
Yeah, it was a trip. When I started, I was so anxious, Gail. It was a trip. And then as we got further along into it, I got more comfortable with what she was saying. Things started connecting. I was like, yeah, well, that makes sense. She's describing who I am. And then by the end of the reading, I was very content.
Were you? That's cool. I felt really good. I've had a lot of readings before. I felt she was accurate. I highly recommend her. That was a good time. That was a good time. Cool.
And in fact, me and you are going to do a reading with her. Like
together. Since she says we're soul mates, together to see what past lives we've had together. I think that would be very, very cool.
So, yeah. Wow.
So, next week, another episode. A guest, maybe not. Maybe we'll just keep you wondering. No, there'll be a guest.
But you don't know who.
Yeah, but we don't know who. But there'll be a guest. But anyway, James, next week.
Hey, keep your minds open, people.
To listen to past episodes, connect with us on social media, or to email us, visit us at www.thatsomecrazyshitpodcast.com. Again, thatsomecrazyshitpodcast.com.